Right now, someone is using a psychological technique on you that's so subtle, you don't even realize it's happening. In fact, by the end of this video, you'll have learned 7 powerful methods that influence people's decisions without them ever knowing. These aren't manipulation tactics or mind control tricks. These are scientifically proven principles that ethical leaders, successful negotiators, and influential communicators use every single day. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly get others to say yes, while you struggle to convince anyone of anything? The answer isn't charisma or luck. It's understanding how the human mind actually makes decisions. And here's what most people don't realize. 95% of our decisions happen subconsciously, before we even think we're deciding. The first principle is called reciprocity, and it's happening around you constantly. When someone does something for you, your brain creates what psychologists call a psychological debt. You feel compelled to return the favor, even if what they gave you was completely unsolicited. Here's where it gets interesting. The favor doesn't have to be big to be effective. In fact, smaller favors often work better because they don't trigger our natural suspicion. Consider this real example. A restaurant owner increased his tips by 23% using reciprocity. How? He started giving customers a single mint with their check. Just 1 mint. But then he tried something different. He gave each customer 2 mints. But here's the key. He made it look spontaneous. The waiter would place 1 mint, start to walk away, then turn back and say, "You know what? You folks have been so nice tonight," and give them a second mint. Tips jumped by 42%. Why does this work? Your subconscious brain interprets the second mint as a personal gesture, not a business transaction. The waiter broke his own rule for you specifically. Now you feel special, and that psychological debt kicks in automatically. But reciprocity has a dark side that most people miss entirely. It can be weaponized by those who understand its power. Have you ever noticed how free samples at the grocery store make you feel slightly obligated to buy something? That's intentional. The company isn't being generous. They're creating psychological debt. The second principle builds on this perfectly, and it's called commitment and consistency. Your brain has a fascinating quirk. Once you've committed to something, especially if you've written it down or said it publicly, you'll go to extraordinary lengths to remain consistent with that commitment, even when it no longer serves you. Here's a study that will blow your mind. Researchers asked people to predict whether they would volunteer for a charity drive. Those who said yes were significantly more likely to actually volunteer when asked later, even though their initial answer was just a hypothetical question. Their brain treated that casual yes as a real commitment. You can use this ethically in your own life. Instead of telling someone what to do, ask them what they think should be done. When they provide the answer themselves, they become committed to it. It's no longer your idea they might resist. It's their own idea they need to defend. But here's where most people make a crucial mistake. They think bigger commitments are more powerful. Actually, small commitments are often more effective because they don't trigger resistance. If someone agrees to a small request, they're much more likely to agree to a larger request later. Psychologists call this the foot in the door technique. A classic study demonstrated this perfectly. Researchers went door to door asking homeowners to put a large, ugly sign supporting safe driving in their front yards. Only 17% agreed, but with a different group, they first asked people to put a small 3-inch sign in their window. Nearly everyone agreed to this tiny request. 2 weeks later, when they asked these same people to put up the large sign, 55% said yes. The small sign changed how they saw themselves. They became people who support safe driving. The large sign was just consistent with their new identity. This leads us to the third principle, which is probably the most powerful of all: social proof. Your brain is constantly asking one question: what are people like me doing in this situation? We look for social cues to guide our behavior, often without realizing it. Here's something that might disturb you. Most of your preferences aren't really yours. They're borrowed from people you identify with or admire. That restaurant you think you discovered, you probably chose it because of reviews from strangers. That political opinion you hold strongly, trace it back far enough, and you'll find it came from your social circle. But social proof becomes incredibly powerful when it's specific. Generic testimonials like, "Customers love our product," are weak, but 93% of customers who bought this product bought it again within 6 months, is compelling because it's specific and measurable. Netflix mastered this with their recommendation algorithm. They don't just say, "People liked this movie." They say, "People who watched the same shows as you rated this 91%. That's targeted social proof, and it's why you end up watching shows you never would have chosen otherwise. The fourth principle might surprise you because it seems counterintuitive. It's called scarcity, and it works because your brain hates losing opportunities more than it loves gaining them. Psychologists call this loss aversion, and it's one of the strongest drivers of human behavior. When something becomes scarce, we want it more, even if we didn't want it much to begin with. Limited time offers, exclusive memberships, last chance sales. These aren't just marketing gimmicks. They're tapping into a fundamental quirk of human psychology. But here's the sophisticated version that most people miss. The most powerful scarcity isn't about the product itself. It's about the opportunity to get the product. This offer expires at midnight is good. Only 3 people will be selected for this opportunity is better, because it makes the chance to buy feel exclusive. Airlines use this brilliantly. Only 2 seats left at this price creates urgency, even when there might be plenty of seats available at slightly higher prices. Your brain focuses on losing this specific opportunity, not on the abundance of alternatives. The 5th principle is authority, but not the kind you think. Most people assume authority means having an impressive title or wearing a suit. Real authority is about demonstrated expertise in the specific area where you're seeking influence. Here's what's fascinating. Your brain makes authority judgments in milliseconds based on subtle cues, the way someone speaks, their word choice, their confidence level, even their posture. These microsignals bypass your conscious mind and influence whether you trust what someone is saying. A study with doctors found that patients were more likely to follow medical advice when the doctor displayed their diplomas prominently. The diplomas didn't change the quality of the advice, but they changed how patients perceived its value. Authority isn't just about what you know, it's about how others perceive what you know. But there's a secret about authority that most people miss entirely. Admitting small weaknesses or mistakes actually increases your authority rather than decreasing it. When someone acknowledges a minor flaw before presenting their main argument, it makes everything else they say seem more credible. This brings us to the 6th principle, which is liking, and it's more complex than it appears. People are more likely to be influenced by those they like, but what makes someone likable isn't what you'd expect. It's not about being universally appealing. It's about creating specific connections with specific people. Similarity is the fastest path to liking. When someone discovers they have something in common with you, their brain categorizes you as part of their in-group. This happens even with trivial similarities. People named Johnson are slightly more likely to trust other people named Johnson. People who share birthdays feel an instant connection. Compliments work, but only when they're specific and unexpected. Generic praise feels manipulative, but noticing something specific that others might miss creates a genuine moment of connection. I really appreciated how you handled that difficult question earlier. Is infinitely more powerful than great presentation. The 7th and final principle is perhaps the most subtle of all. It's called the contrast principle, and it shapes your perception of every choice you make. Your brain doesn't evaluate things in isolation. It compares them to whatever you experienced immediately before. Real estate agents use this masterfully. They'll show you an overpriced house that needs work first, not because they expect you to buy it, but because it makes the next house seem like an incredible deal by comparison. The second house hasn't changed, but your perception of its value has been completely altered. Restaurants do this with their menu design. That expensive steak isn't there because they expect everyone to order it. It's there to make the other options seem reasonably priced. The contrast anchor shifts your entire frame of reference. Now here's what ties all 7 principles together, and this is crucial. They work best when combined, and they work best when the person using them genuinely believes in what they're promoting. These aren't manipulation tactics to trick people into doing things against their interest. They're communication tools to help people make decisions that are already in their best interest. The most ethical and effective influence happens when you're genuinely trying to help someone, and you use these principles to overcome their natural resistance to change. Because here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Even when change is good for us, our brains resist it. These principles help bridge that gap between what people want and what people do. Remember, influence without ethics is manipulation. But ethical influence, understanding how people naturally make decisions and helping them make better ones, that's leadership. That's how you create genuine value while getting the outcomes you want. The person who masters these 7 principles doesn't just become more persuasive, they become more helpful. They become someone others genuinely want to listen to and follow. And in a world where everyone is fighting for attention, being genuinely helpful is the ultimate competitive advantage.